Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. We began chapter 13 yesterday. In chapter 13, Krishna is clearly explaining to us the field of activities, the kshetra, the knower of the field, that's us. And then he says there is another knower of all the fields, and that is the Paramatma. So the relationship between this nature, Prakriti, our soul, ourself, the soul, and Paramatma. So Atma and Paramatma are different. Atma is individual, Paramatma is the Supreme Personality. Okay, continue reading.
Text 4. Tat kshetram yaccha yadrik cha yad vikari yatascha yat sachayo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shrinu. Translation. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Purport. The Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional positions. One has to know how this body is constituted, the materials of which this body is made, under whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, where from the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, what the ultimate goal of the individual soul is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the supersoul, their different influences, their potentials, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every body to be one with the individual soul, the Jeev. This is something like equating the potent with the important.
So what is Krishna saying here?
Krishna is going to explain further about what this soul is and what are its influences and how everything is existing.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And let's go on.
Text 5. Rishibhir bahudha gitam chandobhir vividhahe prathak Brahma Sutra Padascheva Hetumadbhir Vinishchite Teha. Translation. That knowledge of the field of activities and of the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and the supersoul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. First, he says, this is according to different sages. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasdev, the author of the Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage, and in the Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasdeva's father, Parashar, is also a great sage, and he writes in his books of religiosity, Aham Tvam Cha Tathanyaya. We, you, I, and the various other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. Now we have fallen into the ways of the three modes of material nature according to our different karma. As such, some are on higher levels and some are in the lower nature. The higher and lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the supersoul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature and is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul, the supersoul, and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parashar is considered principal among them. The word Chandobhi refers to the various Vedic literatures. The Taitiriya Upanishad, for example, which is a branch of the Yajur Ved, describes nature, the living entity, and the supreme personality of Godhead. As stated before, Kshetra is the field of activities, and there are two kinds of Kshetragya, the individual living entity and the supreme living entity. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahma Pucham Pratishtha. There is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamaya, dependence upon food for existence. This is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. Then in Pranmaya, after realizing the Supreme absolute truth in food, one can realize the absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. In Gyanmaya, realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Then there is Brahman realization, called Vijnanamaya, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of all blissful nature. Thus, there are five stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahma Pucham. Out of these, the first three, Annamaya, Pranamaya, and Jnanamaya, involve the fields of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, who is called Anandamaya. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying Anandamayo Bhayashat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanmaya, Pranmaya, Jnanmaya, and Annamaya. In the field of activities of living, or in the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy endowtailing himself with the Anandamaya, then he becomes perfect. This is the real picture of the Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field, the living entity as the subordinate knower, and the nature of the field of activities. One has to search for this truth in the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. It is mentioned here that the codes of Brahma Sutra are very nicely arranged according to cause and effect. Some of the sutras or aphorisms are are na vyad, ashrute, natma shrute, and parat tu tach shrute. The first aphorism indicates the field of activities, the second indicates the living entity, and the third indicates the Supreme Lord, the sum bonum among all the manifestations of various entities.
So what is Krishna saying here?
Hmm. Oh, this was very long.
Yeah.
He's saying field of activities, like it's
So
already
what is
described
the field? Yeah. So what is the field of activities?
our body,
Yeah.
like our
Kshetra,
body,
right? And then the knower of the field, knower of the activities. Who is the knower?
our soul and super soul.
Yeah. So we can see in this whole chapter, actually, Krishna is again and again telling us that we are different than our body and we are not the super soul also. We are individual soul because, we think we are our body or we are our mind, right? That's how we go about living. go about doing all the activities we are thinking we are our body or our mind. But again and again, Krishna is saying that the body is just the field of activities, whereas there is the knower, the individual soul is inside. Or then again, some people may think that the soul and super soul are the same, that God is within me and I am that God. But no, here in this chapter, Krishna is clearly saying, no, there are two, the soul and super soul. They are different. Super soul is God. We are just individual soul.
Mm.
So, and then again, there was this thing about the Annamaya. We could read that. Let's see. Um, and so now the differences between the soul and super soul. Okay,
Mm.
the super soul is sitting next to us.
Mm.
We are also sitting now in the body. So does it mean that the super soul's consciousness is contaminated? Does he start thinking he's the body?
No.
No,
Super soul.
that's the difference. Mm.
Mm.
I'm sorry, super soul.
No, I was asking if super soul starts to think that I'm the body. So I was saying no.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. He's always infallible, never forgets his position. That's the difference between soul and super soul. That we start thinking we are the body as soon as we are the body. Although we are not, the soul can never become the body.
Mm.
But we start thinking, but the super soul never thinks. So this is a big difference between us, because we may say, oh, God and me, same, same. But no, there is a difference. God never thinks that he's the body. He never wants to enjoy this material energy, whereas we want to. We get under ignorance. Okay. And
Okay.
then, hmm,
Okay.
okay, to dive so far. Okay, now manifestation of Supreme Lord's energy known as Annamaya, dependence upon food for existence. That's all the living entities concerned. Only food, like for
Mm.
example, animals, maybe babies, no other realization, just need food.
Mm.
And then Pranmaya, after realizing absolute truth in food, one can realize the absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. Uh, and what is living symptoms of life forms? And Gyanmaya extends,
Vigyan.
realization extends beyond the living symptoms to thinking, feeling, and willing. Then that is the mind.
One of thinking. Mm.
Yeah, thinking, feeling, willing, that is identifying with the mind. So here we are seeing like how a gradual elevation of consciousness is happening.
Mm.
So first, just being happy with food, then
Mm.
can realize absolute truth in the living symptoms or life forms. I think is just thinking that we are the body, then thinking, feeling, willing, then this is the mind.
Mm.
And here, then there's Brahman realization, Vigyan Maya, in which living entities' mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. So here, Brahman realization, where now the soul understands, I am not this body, nor am I my mind. I am spirit soul. That is Vigyan Maya.
Mm.
So there's a gradual elevation of consciousness. Then now Ananda Maya, because okay, one comes to understand he's Brahman, Brahmasmi. That is Vigyan, scientific, right? But what about Ananda Maya? Then that we can realize only when we realize the God,
Mm.
God realization.
Okay.
Okay.
So Anandamaya, Krishna consciousness actually exists in Anandamaya, right?
Yeah, that's
Mm.
right.
Mm.
For example, the souls who understand I am spirit soul, then they are experiencing Sat and Chit, knowledge and eternal. They understand I'm eternal and they have knowledge. I'm not the body, I'm the soul. But they don't experience the Ananda to that degree. Sure, there is. Sure, there is freedom from misery. There is no material misery. There is some sort of happiness, of course, because the soul itself is always joyful. But to actually fully experience that Anandamaya is only when we understand our relationship with God. That is when we can experience Ananda.
So can I say that right now I am in these three, like fluctuating from An, Pran, and Gyan Maya back and
Yeah,
forth? Is it right?
yeah,
Hmm.
it's true. Yeah, because we are, you know, just food conscious, and then
Hmm.
thinking we are the body and thinking we are the mind.
Hmm.
That's what, as you say, fluctuating.
Okay. So
Yeah.
after
Then
this, then
how to elevate our consciousness,
devotional
how to
service.
understand. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Devotional service. Because here one may say, okay, well, yeah, I am in Vijnanmaya. I'm not this body, I'm not the mind, I'm the soul. But then how to act as the soul, Because one may theoretically keep saying, yeah, I'm not the body, I'm the soul, but then acting and doing everything as if we are the body or as if we are the mind. So when we engage in devotional service, that is the real activity of the soul.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
gradually, one will be able to realize this knowledge that, yes, I really am not my body. I really am not my mind. I'm a spirit soul. As one continues, one is going to understand, I'm a soul. There's a super soul. I have a loving relationship with super soul.
Hmm.
Anandamaya then.
Okay. So it is. Um, so Lord actually expands himself into these um, mayas.
Yeah, that's what's written here. He expands into to enjoy his transcendental bliss. He expands into actually everything is an extension of the Lord, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Everything's coming from him. The mind is made by him. Our physical bodies are made by him. We, the souls, we are his part and parcels.
Hmm.
Oh,
Okay.
mhm.
Nice.
And what is the way that we could actually be blissful?
Uh, the way that we can actually be blissful is once we know our position.
Yeah,
Mm,
position
that
in relation to God, right?
yeah, that we have to serve him.
Yeah, that's right. That we can really be blissful. Okay. Okay, so we'll see in this chapter, Krishna is he's repeatedly saying that, okay, the field of activities is different, the soul is different, and the super soul is different, because we get confused when we think all is one, all is one.
Mm.
Okay, let's read.
Text 6 to 7. महाभूतानि अहंकारो बुद्धिरव्यक्तमेव च इन्द्रियाणि दशैकं च पञ्चचेन्द्रियगोचरः इच्छा इच्छा द्वेष सुखं दुःखं सङ्घातश्चेतना धृतिः एतत् क्षेत्रं समासेन सविकारम् उदाहृतम्. Translation: The five great elements: false ego, Intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions, all these are considered, in summary, to be the field of activities and its interactions. Purport. From all the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns, and the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra, the components of this world can be understood as follows. First, there are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are the 5 great elements, Mahabhut. Then there are 5 ego. There are false ego.
false.
Yeah. False ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then 5 working senses, voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. Then above the senses, there is the mind, which is within and which can be called the sense within, which is within. Therefore, including the mind, there are 11 senses altogether. Then there are the 5 objects of the senses. Smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. Now, the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. Oh. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 subjects, then he can very well understand the field of activity. Then there are desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions, representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. The living symptoms, represented by consciousness and convictions, are the manifestation of the subtle body. Mind, ego, and intelligence. These subtle elements are included within the field of activities. The 5 great elements are a gross representation of the false ego, which in turn represents the primal stage of false ego, technically called the materialistic conception or tamasa buddhi. Intelligence in ignorance. This further represents the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of material nature. The unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradhan. One who desires to know the 24 elements in detail along with their interactions should study the philosophy in more detail. In Bhagavad Gita, summary only is given. The body is the representation of all these factors, and there are changes of the body which are 6 in number. The body is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, then it begins to decay, and at the last stage it vanishes. Therefore, the field is a non-permanent material thing. However, the Kshetragya, the knower of the field, its proprietor, is different.
What is Krishna saying here?
Oh, Krishna is talking about the 24 elements this body and all this material world is made of.
Yeah, that's
Is it
right.
only or the material world?
Mm,
I think it's only
I'm
body.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Uh, I mean, is he talking only about the body or all the material nature?
Everything, the body also, and if we look around,
Mm.
everything is just made of this. Someone's body has all this false ego, senses, and mind. But if, like, we see our chair or our
Mm.
table, it will be of the 5 great elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether.
Okay.
Right? Then, of course, because in the body the senses are there, the mind is there, the objects of the senses are there. Then the interactions, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, life symptoms, and convictions. So, all our desires in the mind. So, this is all the field of activities. But Krishna is saying, but you are not that, you're separate, you're the soul.
Mm.
Because we get so confused, right? We think we are this material world, we think we are this body. So Krishna's like breaking down what the body is made up of. And then he's saying, but you're not this, you're the soul. So this is detail is given in Sankhya philosophy. It's a Sankhya philosophy. In that philosophy, then they break down like, okay, what is this material made up of? Then conclusion is, oh, finally it is only these 24 elements.
Okay.
And then the soul is different from these elements, and above the soul is even the super soul, who's the controller of all. So this 24 elements, you know how they are divided? 24?
You mean in our body? How?
Yeah.
I think it's already written like there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge.
Yeah. Do you know what
Mm,
are the 5 acquiring knowledge senses?
Yeah, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin.
Yeah.
But most of the time I just get confused, because I can't remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. Me too. That's 5 acquiring. Then 5 working.
Working senses like
Which are the working?
legs, hands,
Mm,
anus, and
mm,
genitals. Mhm.
mm.
Then above the
Then,
senses, there's mind, ego, and intelligence.
okay.
Yeah.
And then the 5 sense objects.
Yeah, sense objects is like touch, smell, sound, taste, and what is the touch, smell, mm, eyes, vision,
Form, seeing. Yeah. To see.
see,
Yeah. So then 5, 5, 5, 15, 16, 17, 18.
18. Yeah. Still, how much are left? 6 are left. And 6 are, what are the 6?
The 6 senses. That is like the eyes, ears, nose, tongue. uh,
Oh, these are
Eyes,
all
ears,
covered.
nose, tongue. And then the 6th is the mind, because the mind is called the king of the senses. So that's
Okay.
why the mind is also being said. But if we look at it like mind, intelligence, false ego, they become 3. They are the subtle elements, right? Mind, intelligence, false ego. They're the 5 gross elements, then earth, water, air, fire, ether. He didn't say those.
So basically, there are 5 gross elements, and then
Yeah,
5 for acquiring knowledge, and then
yeah,
5 for working
yeah,
senses, like total 13. And
yeah.
what other 5 were?
Sense objects.
Sense
Sense
objects.
objects. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. And it
sense
becomes
objects.
20, and 21st is mind, and rest of the 3.
No, so 20, right? 20, then mind, intelligence, and false ego
Okay,
becomes
23.
23. And then 24 is the sum total of everything. That's the Mahatattva, where the 3 modes are also there. That's the
Uh,
Mahatattva, sum total. It's like
Bhagavad-
everything is there in it, but not, yeah, like the material modes are also in there. Sum total,
mm,
that's the Mahatattva. So now what's the Pradhan? Pradhan is before the manifestation.
mm.
Your last unmanifested modes. So first, most subtle, first is Pradhan, then Mahatattva is created. Like Pradhan, everything is sleeping, thus nothing is manifested. Then in Mahatattva, ev- everything is there, but all mixed up. The modes are there, the false ego, everything is there, but it's all mixed up. Then gradually, how one by another is being manifested.
Mm.
So the more detail is given in the section of creation in
So,
Bhagavatam.
in Bhagavatam. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Second and third cantos. The creation
Oh,
is repeated 2-3 times to help
mm,
us understand how the creation is happening from the most subtle to the most gross, like how from Pradhan all the way coming to Earth. Earth is the most grossest. And then, of course, how in between you'll see the senses also created. And
hmm.
so, as Prabhupada is saying in Bhagavad Gita, it's only a summary study.
Yeah.
So the body has 6 changes. What are they?
Like birth, then
Mm,
it grows,
mm,
and then it reproduces, and then
mm,
it stays before reproduces.
mm,
Then after that it decays, and finally it vanishes.
that's right.
Mm.
So, but this is all to the body. The
S-
changes are to the body. What about the
mm.
soul?
No, it's
The soul
eternal.
is eternal. That's right. There
Mm.
are no changes for the soul. We are thinking, okay, I'm growing, I'm born, I'm growing, I'm staying, I'm having some byproducts in the sense that we may have some extensions, we may have some children, we may have some acquire something, whatever they may be, then begin to dwindle, and then death. So we are thinking we are all this, but it's actually all this is happening to the body, but whereas we are the soul, separate from the body.
Actually, in this purport, I'm also thinking about artificial intelligence.
Hmm.
So how it
What?
can, uh, I mean, like in movies, we used to see that it reaches at that point where it destroys whole humanity. But
Hmm.
I think that cannot ever happen.
You mean
Uh,
artificial intelligence to get an intelligence on its own, like that?
yes, although it can
Ah,
learn from mistakes, or it can learn by uh, gathering information. But I think still, based on these 24 elements, there will be still many things lacking behind.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yes.
of course, of course,
Mm,
for sure.
especially,
Because, hmm, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if, because mind, ego, and intelligence,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't have that single body,
yeah,
which also results in emotions, right?
that's
Emotions
right.
are because of mind, ego, and intelligence.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm,
Or it's more to do with the mind. Yeah, emotions would be with the mind, and the intelligence helps us to differentiate. But yeah, it's true. The machine doesn't have those. It doesn't have the soul. There's no soul inside it. Cannot produce, two machines cannot produce a third machine by
yeah.
itself, you know? Has to go to the factory to make it.
Mm,
There's
right.
always a person behind all this. No.
Yes. Just like, in artificial intelligence, a programmer gives instructions in the beginning. And then it has also given that kind of instructions that you have to learn from your mistakes or the new data.
Mm,
Until unless there is someone who is providing this information to
yeah,
a machine, then how come uh, it can learn?
that's right.
Yeah. So there has
Yeah,
to be a creator.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mm,
And then Prabhupada would say, no, that God's machine is so This he just man and woman together, they can create so many different more machines and more machines.
Mm.
Mm. But
Yes.
this this artificial machine cannot create more machines by themselves.
Maybe maybe it can happen. It cannot create machines by reproducing. Repro-
Mm.
its reproduction will be in the sense that the information that it has, it may create another machine similar
Mm.
to its. I think that can also be done with artificial intelligence,
But
because
again,
if
they
it
are taking all those things. Again, everything is going in the factory. Again, they are taking this earth, water, fire, all the
yeah,
material elements,
yeah,
right? They can't actually create these elements.
yeah, not these elements, but just like obviously if someone or something is reproducing, then uh, it actually is similar to the person who has reproduced, right? Just like
Mm.
animals are similar to animals, so a machine can only reproduce a machine.
Mm.
Mm. In that sense, I
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
by learning, by taking all the instructions that uh, it has taken, then it
Mm.
may also one day it can create multiple artificial intelligence systems by itself.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it may happen. Why not?
Yeah,
Why not?
actually,
Machines, but they'll always still be a machine only, right? No soul there.
yeah, that is true. It cannot
Mm.
be a proper human.
They can, yeah, they can create how many ever machines, but cannot create a soul,
Yes,
right?
cannot
It's
create.
true. We have so many machines. It's true. Our life is being surrounded more and more by machines, and in future, then it's going to be more and more machines.
Mm,
It'll be all machines, though.
yeah. What kind of a world that would be? Like, okay,
I know, right?
okay.
So, right here, but then we understand, okay, that we are different from the machine. We are the soul,
Mm.
right? That's what we are trying to understand. The body is the machine and we are the soul. And above us, controlling both, is the super soul. So let's stop here. Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.